Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the launch of Katharine Graham's debut novel, Quarry. I don't want to get emotional yet. I'm Alexandra Leggett. I am the sole proprietor and publisher of Two Wolves Press. It's amazing. I started this press 1 year ago, almost literally 1 year ago, with my first author, Eileen Santos, who's here in her novel, Someone Like You. And she was very patient with me because, I was learning the ropes, and having been a writer and then jumping over to the other side of the fence, let me just say she's been very patient with me. But it is a dream come true, and then, standing up here and seeing all of you here for the next book is truly so incredibly rewarding. Something about putting out other people's books, making a book, is, I actually don't really have the words for how incredible it is. I would like to thank the International Festival of Authors, which is another dream come true. That we have Toronto Lit Up, the Toronto Arts Council, and the International Festival of Authors, with us and partnering with us on this, which Katharine and I grew up going to the Festival of Authors and as little, young people wanting to be writers, and here we are, this teeny little press, and thank you so much, all of you, for all your support and help and being behind us on this book. It's fantastic. Katharine Graham. Now, you can open up the book and read the bio, so I'm not going to list off her many publications, her 5 books of poetry, her awards. The next book that's coming out in the fall with Walsack and Wynne, The Celery Forest. I thought maybe I'd tell you a couple of things about Katharine that you don't know, if you don't mind. Katharine and I have worked, this has been an incredible journey. This one-on-one partnership, and literally the ship is the operative word. Katharine and I worked every single morning from about 8:30, maybe, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours on the book over the phone. She's in the West End, I'm in the East End. And after a while, we realized it was like we were in our own little spaceships, and we were floating out there in the universe together, connected by these cell phones, talking about the book. And the day we sent it to the printer, it was a really horrible feeling, and because we were back down to earth, and we had to call each other, and because we really missed our spaceships. So we've come down to earth again tonight, but we may be zooming back up into space after the launch. Katharine Graham, again, an incredible poet. Her poeticism and her work, I can't say enough about this experience and what's captured in the book. So please welcome Katharine Graham.
Thank you, Alexandra, for that lovely introduction. Thank you all for coming. I'm just delighted to know that so many people I love are in this room, and people that I admire, and I could just thank you all night and not even read. But I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to thank IFOA and Toronto Lit Up. As Alex said, we're honored to have their support for this launch and all the marketing they've been doing. See, it works. People came. And I'd also like to thank the Tranzac, and I have this special Quarry launch team. I'd like to say special thanks to Andrew and Patricia. They've been working on this for weeks, and all the things like the slideshow and the music. and special touches as well. So thank you for that. I'd also like to thank Mary Lou Finlay. I'm honored that she'll be sharing this stage with me. Wow. And we'll have the interview. Friends and family from afar and close, and Alexandra Leggett. I'd like to thank her as well. And I'll talk more about Alex in a minute, but I also just want to thank my partner, John Coates, who, yay! Years ago, I remember reading a quote by Carol Shields, and she talked about her husband, how he was her great good luck. And that is how I feel about John Coates. He is my great good luck, and I'm not going to cry. So, and Alexandra Leggett, wow. She and her two wolves made the dream happen. We did miss our spaceships, but we'll go back. We'll float around. And as she says, we'll float around tonight. And thank you. So I'm going to read two little parts of Quarry. I'm going to start with the beginning, and I'm going to hope I can see. It's dark. I think I need some kind of light. Oh, no, wait. I'll go like this. Will I? Okay. Is there a kind of light I can have, or is there something here? It's very dark. Like that? Wow. We didn't practice this part. As some of you know, I've memorized some of my poems. I just know them because I've lived with them so long, but I don't know this. It's not the glasses, it's the light. Oh, yay! Thank you. Thank you. Dive in. Turn to water before it freezes. I didn't know what a quarry was until I saw the one that would belong to us. A pit carved for mining. Dig what you need, the dynamite gap, leave a hole for evidence. Don't think about air filling it up. Air fills up everything. Water makes the quarry more than it is. The blue we were drawn to. On the dock looking out, my mother on one side, my father the other, their big shoulders pressing me in. It was our first summer living beside a lake that wasn't a lake, with wind tents of blue moving in the jeweled sunlight, up and gone and up again. The limestone cut into jagged rock, layered with the weight of dead animals, ancient sea animals, imprints. Lush green trees they surrounded as a forest. Dad had found the place by chance after spotting the for sale sign outside a white gate that led to a long gravel driveway. A bend that led to a mini lake, the house of Mom's dreams. We made up dives that summer, me and Cindy. The watermelon dive, legs in a V. The about to die dive, a rambling, dramatic shotgun death off the dock. The scissor kick dive, a flutter of pointed legs in the air. And the drowning dive. Rise to the surface and float like the dead fish that smacked against the limestone rock, oozing decay's stink. With a 2-year advantage, I gave my 9-year-old cousin a 3-second head start whenever we raced off the dock to reach the floating raft. Sometimes a hit of the giggles cut through my determination, a memory of something we'd laughed about while lying in the dark, tucked in our single beds, or while eating Rice Krispies, opening up our food-filled mouths to shout, "Seafood diet." Mom served as judge as she sat on the dock smoking her brand, Benson and Hedges. She was there to rescue us if we were to drown. I knew this was an illusion. Though an athlete, Mom could barely swim, and deep water scared her. She excelled at land games, sports with rackets like badminton and tennis, especially tennis. Our shelves of knickknacks were stacked with gold trophies, tiny females frozen in mid-serve. Watch, Mom, watch. Caitlin Maharg, I'm always watching. I dove, and then Cindy dove, and we made her grade us. 10 out of 10, said Mom. Me or Cindy? Both. She lit another cigarette and exhaled the burst of smoke. Aw, Mom, someone has to win. So I'm going to jump ahead now, and the Maharg family of 3 becomes a family of 2. So Caitlin Maharg and her father, to deal with the loss of Rusty, go to New York City the first Christmas without her. They're staying at the St. Regis, and to Caitlin's surprise, Don's new girlfriend, Linda, arrives. So this part of the book is called 3 in a Room. It was hard walking in twos down the frantic sidewalks of Manhattan, so threes were close to impossible. Bags and elbows and bustling bodies, snow in your face. But I was getting used to the squawking honks from the parade of yellow taxis and the awkward silence between us all. Dad looked at the street sign. "This way," he said. Gold doors and high-fashion mannequins. A crowd had gathered by the model in the window who was trying not to blink. I stared at her nose, where air moved in and out. Dad tugged the sleeve of my peacoat. "Come on, we're going inside." The department store was so long, I couldn't see the end of it. Coiffed women stationed like sentinels, bottles in hand, ready to spray. I scanned the nearby shelves for a bottle of Chanel No. 5 and sprayed some on my wrist. Now you will smell her. Not the cancer-ridden bedsore smell that permeated my nightmares, but the scent of a healthy mother. I sniffed. Something was missing. Oils, hers, to make the mother scent. Linda exposed her wrist to a sprayer. Dad sniffed. "What do you think?" he said, looking at me. I knew the fruity scent from a girl in residence, an annoying, chatty friend of my roommate, Susie. I didn't like the scent then, so I knew I wouldn't like it now. "It doesn't work for me," I said, stuffing my hands in my coat pockets. "Not for you. Here." He grabbed Linda's wrist and led it to my face. When I tried not to smell it, I sneezed. "Oops," I said, and wiped my nose. I drizzled snot on her inner wrist. "It's okay," said Linda, grabbing a Kleenex from her purse. "Jesus," said Dad, "enough of this." He untied the knot of his plaid scarf. "You want to look at clothes? You look at clothes." So we split up. Dad went to the men's, Linda and me, the ladies. "Caitlin?" The tap on my arm made me jump. Linda was holding something yellow. "You okay? I thought this sweater would look pretty on you." I didn't want to try it on, but I did. I don't know why. Shades of yellow washed me out. We had spears in our hands, long silver sticks. We stabbed the bread cubes and dunked them into the bubbling cheese, gathered our lift in cheesy strings. The fondue restaurant had been Linda's suggestion. We'd left the travel guide at the hotel and were too tired and hungry to get it. "You're not eating anymore," Caitlin said, Dad. I stabbed the smallest chunk of bread and swirled it above the bubbling cheese. "See? That's not eating. That's playing with your goddamn food." Linda smiled at me. "Maybe she's not that hungry, Dawn. Did I pick the wrong place?" We'd have fainted by now if you hadn't spotted it. It's New York City. We do new things. I never thought to ask Linda why she'd come to New York or why she was having a tough time that Christmas. I couldn't direct my thoughts to outcomes. They melted like snow on the tongue. I had extra space on the long wooden bench sitting across from Dad and Linda. They were probably touching knees, so I guess Linda was smart to choose a place like Swiss Bliss. We didn't have to stare at each other. We could stare at the pot and respond after swallows with yum, and other guttural noises. And when that died down, we could listen to the voices around us. The little girl sitting next to me didn't want to stab her bread with cheese. "Chocolate. I want chocolate." "You'll get chocolate," said a woman in a black dress, "but you have to eat the cheese first." Little girl put down her stick and crossed her arms. She started kicking the bench with the back of her foot. Thunk, thunk. I could feel the vibrations, like a ticking clock, and I hated the sound of a ticking clock, like Nana's grandfather clock that sat in her kitchen in Owen Sound. It took away your concentration, and that's what her foot was doing. Thunk, thunk, taking a piece of me I didn't want to give. I slid my foot over to block her swing. She stopped. She didn't look at me. She was looking at the waitress carrying a pot of her precious chocolate. Maybe grief was more like snow, falling and falling, taking the shape of your body. There must be some way to make peace, for grief to live on but less heavy. Snow melts to water. Water lets you float. Little girl was eating her lip-smacking chocolate. She looked at the liquid she'd pooled around her fork before tonguing the nutty layer, eyes half shut. She made this sound like she was sucking a soother, her tongue tapping the roof of her mouth. Horrible, that little slap. I slid down the bench as far as I could without touching the knee of the next stranger, but that little smack followed. I couldn't get away from it. And when I closed my eyes, I felt this slap inside me, the sound of wood, of dirt hitting wood, of dirt flying from shovels. I shifted back beside the girl in one long swoop and tipped her milk onto her lap. "Mummy!" I righted the glass and used my serviette to stop the dripping. "Sorry," I said. "It's okay, honey. Accidents happen." I smiled when I heard that voice, the tone maternal. But when I looked up to say thank you, the woman was leaning toward her daughter. We walked back to the hotel carrying our brown bags of stuff. American flags flapped in the wind. We didn't have so many flags back home, only on Canada Day. Here every day was America Day, red, white, and blue. Except for blue, we had the other colors. What made theirs so bold? Stars and stripes versus the hand of a leaf. That's what it looked like, the palm of a hand in the shape of a leaf. My palm in a plaster of Paris when I was in grade 1. Once the imprint hardened, I brought it home. "I love it," Mom had said, placing her palm on the imprint. Her hand healthy and big. Her palm didn't fit, but that wasn't the point. The point was to press herself in the way I'd pressed myself in to make a mark out of me. I hadn't had any wine at Swiss Bliss, but when we stepped into the hotel lobby, I wished I had. Our daytime adventure was over. Next step, sleep. Me and Linda in the same double bed. "How about a nightcap?" I said, peering into the lobby bar. Home of the Bloody Mary, the red snapper. Dad headed towards the elevators, but Linda stepped back. "I see a saxophone. Must be live music. A nightcap would be nice. Dawn?" In the lounge, Dad sat next to me, Linda across the table. We ordered some drafts. The waitress carried them over on a round tray. She set down 3 beer mats, then 3 beers. We all looked at the beers. "Wait," Dad said. The waitress turned. "They're foam heavy." "Pardon me?" "You heard me." He held one up. "It's half foam." "Dawn," said Linda, "they're not that bad." Dad hit the drinks menu. "For what they're charging in here?" "Sir, I'd be happy to return these for you, sir." The waitress righted her round tray. "I've already sipped mine," I said, rubbing lip gloss from the rim. He pulled the pint from my hand and passed it to the puzzled waitress. He did it so quickly it nearly toppled. "Here," said Dad. "Oh," she said in a different voice, high and thin. She wiped her fingers on the front of her black skirt. "I'll be back in a moment." With no beers to look at, we looked at Dad's drumming fingers. "They were bad," he said. "I know my beer." Linda's chin tilted upwards. It looked like she wanted to say something. When her lips parted, I thought, here it comes, but the sound was a dry cough. I stared at the barroom wall, the mural of old King Cole. "See his face?" Dad said. We looked at the king's face. "He's letting one go." "No," said Linda. "Oh, yeah," Dad said. He lifted his leg and tilted the chair. "Dawn," said Linda. "Dad," I said. He mimicked the king's grin. "Look at the two of you," he laughed. "You look like them." Dad slapped his knee as he eyed the others in the mural. "See?" Sure enough, the jesters were laughing, the page boys blanching, and the knights covering their mouths. The king's feet was twisted like his face. A different waitress brought our beers. Her dark hair was streaked with a gray strip like a lopsided skunk. She didn't look at us when she set down the glasses. No foam, only the odd floating bubble. 3 songs later, the 3 of us sat facing the same direction like sparrows towards the sun, as if the sax, the sound of the sun, had unraveled the knots in our bodies, the fresh tension we'd brought to the table and passed on to the waitress, the one who never came back. We thought they were finished, the trio, so when the skunk-haired waitress whizzed by us again, Dad asked for the bill. We gathered our bags and our coats. With our backs to the musicians, we weren't prepared for another song. Perhaps I should say I wasn't. When the music started, my body tightened. I turned to Dad. He was watching them play their song, his and my mother's. "This guy's in love with you." Did Linda know? I checked her expression. It seemed she'd picked up on something. "Dawn," she said, looking at the floor, "your scarf." I'd seen his eyes do that, retreat and push at the same time, only this time he wasn't looking at the family room floor. It's a beautiful song, a hard one to play, and the trio played it well. No vocalist. It could have been worse. Linda picked up the scarf and wrapped it around his neck and set green bills on the table. After Dad blinked, his gaze resettled. But for that brief moment, he'd shown more control than the model we saw in the Fifth Avenue window. I didn't see his chest move. Thank you.
The next part of our wonderful evening, you may recognize the voice of our wonderful guest who's going to be interviewing Catherine. We realized there were very many moments, all the synchronicity happening with this novel, all the magic coming out of it. And it just so happens that Dawn, who you heard about, one of my favorite characters, we would laugh so much about some of the things that Dawn said and did, like that scene in the New York hotel. And one of his favorite shows was As It Happens from the CBC. And he played the CBC all the time. And so I am so proud and so honored to have a very renowned journalist, also was a host of As It Happens, Mary Lou Finlay, to talk to Catherine.
So, congratulations.
Aw, thanks, Mary Lou.
I love this book.
Thank you.
I need to say that, first of all.
Thank you.
It is so thrilling to know that somebody you have always liked and admired is a really brilliant, talented writer, too, and is going to have such success with this book. So, but most people here and in this country and around the world, in Scotland and Greece and everywhere, know you as a poet because you have so far 5 books of poetry, another one coming in September. What caused you to move from verse to prose? What was the, and it didn't happen just yesterday. You've been working on this for a while, I realize, but.
Yeah, well, it's really, it's been quite a journey, and it's been an interesting journey too, because I think at heart I really am a poet, but there's only so much sometimes you can do with poetry. And I think of the image of a spring, like when it's coiled and it's tight. It's kind of like what you're doing when you're a poet. You're trying to sort of make this compact sort of thing spring to energy. And then I realized in writing prose, it's sort of like pulling that apart, and yet still having all the links and all of the circles connecting. So it took me a while to learn how to do that, and then see exactly what I was trying to do, because I am such an organic writer, and yeah, it just sort of taught me what it needed to be. And I just kind of kept following that along, and I've learned a lot about writing through the process.
So a lot of the poems were like small pieces of what this was going to be, this magnus opus.
Well, what's interesting was when I started, I'd forgotten this, and then I realized in an early draft, because there's an interesting line between fiction and reality with this book. I forgot. I was going to actually, at the point when I was saying my thank yous, because I was going to thank my parents because they died way too young, but they're why I write. There was a Donald, but his name was Graham. There was a Rusty, and her name was Graham. And but they're fictional characters too. So even that scene, my dad didn't actually do that, but I tried to capture the essence of who they were, and I found that with fiction you could do that, and I guess fiction writers know this, but it was new to me, and I thought, well, it's interesting that you take sort of a reality and it becomes its own reality. So it was really learning how that world would become what it needed to be. So there's that fine line between the two, and then you don't even know, and you think, did that happen or not happen? I can't even remember now. So yeah.
So I want to come back to the autobiographical aspects in a moment, but I wanted to ask you, too, about the title of the book, Quarry, because Quarry has figured prominently in your earlier writings. It's where you open the book. It's so central to Caitlin's life and yours. You lived on a property with a quarry. And it's so rich in metaphor. You really mine that quarry for your book.
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, that's it. I did grow up beside a water-filled limestone quarry. And it was very, like people in the area didn't even know it was there because it's forested, it was hidden. There was a public one that people went to and paid to, and ours was right beside it. So it was incredible to sort of, you're looking back as a teenager, you're like, you're so isolated. You're like, oh, why can't I be in town with all that my friends are? But now I see what a feeding ground that was for me as a writer. And Paul Vermeersch, who was here earlier, I don't know if he's still in the room, but he's been my editor through all my poetry books here in Canada. And the quarry comes up. It's in every one of my books, and it will be in the celery forest too. So it's interesting that, again, that you talked about it being a metaphor, and it's kind of a metaphor for Caitlin's journey as well. And I've talked about, I think we all carry a quarry inside us, this sort of subterranean past that we carry through our present. We're all multi-layered, and there's all things to learn about ourselves as we move through life. So I just think it's an endless metaphor.
So the quarry was a place where you played with your cousin Cindy, a place you went to as a haven a lot.
Now you're saying Caitlin.
Where Caitlin went to as a haven. And, but quarry also has a sense of the hunted. And when I was reading it, I thought, Caitlin is almost also a quarry of the gods. It's as though the gods were jealous of her life because her early life was very happy.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too. And I love words that have more than one meaning. And quarry, yes, you've got sort of the limestone quarry, the dugout rock, and this just happened to fill with water. And then you have quarry as in you're trying to like get some kind of prey. And if you look back too, quarry also comes from kur, which is heart. So it's like the heart of something. And so as poets, we just love these kind of words that do these different things all at once. So as a fiction writer, I was sort of, I guess, playing with that too. So you've got the image and her inner journey through the quarry and all the various layers, and then sort of the way that you're so vulnerable, not only when you're young, but when you're going through grief. Your world is so distorted, and you don't know how to cope. You have nothing to hang on to. So you're just sort of lost. And so it's unfortunate some people will pick on that, and some will help, but some won't. But you think they're helping. Yeah.
So the grief, the loss, your parents, Caitlin's parents, her mother first, she started to write. She had a professor who became a therapist who encouraged her. You wrote, you started to write. Was that a way of dealing with the loss? And is it still?
Well, it's interesting again. I mean, I mentioned I don't know if I would be a writer otherwise without the loss of my parents, because they're so much part of that. And through therapy, because I mean, this is like an introvert's nightmare, standing on stage talking to a hero that you've listened to for years. But the thing is as well, like an introvert's I mean, I know writers, many of you are, you're shy, you're introverted, but your passion for writing and your passion for sharing the story takes you out of that. So very much that's what happened to me. So it was really through seeing a therapist, because people were worried about me. I wasn't knowing how to handle the emotions. I was keeping everything inside. And the therapist suggested keep a journal, started doing that. So yes, there's a release of the emotions and trying to make sense of things. But through that, I organically started playing with words and images and memories. And it was a different feeling. It wasn't just venting things out, it was creating. And it goes back to that idea of poiesis, of maker. So through that, I kind of found my way as a writer. So it was sort of many branched, and again, such an organic process that I don't know. I mean, I look back now and I think I'm kind of the classic sort of writer in sort of germination kind of in high school, but I didn't have that teacher to spark that. So it came to me in a different way, but at the same time, I don't know if I would be a writer without the loss of my parents. So I'm just rambling now.
And now you have immortalized them. I mean, they will live forever in this book. It's also a great coming-of-age novel. I mean, apart from the dramatic events that happened to Caitlin, there are the familiar first kiss, first crush, hideous kids at school, hideous jobs. Darren smoking weed behind the. And did you want to read a part from the Clifton Hill, which was one of the jobs? Your first job was as a lifeguard at a place. Was it Hideaway Park? Was that the park or the place behind?
Caitlin.
Caitlin.
Mary Lou, we talked about this.
How much of the book is autobiographical?
Give me a few more drinks and then we'll talk.
Caitlin gets a job as a lifeguard, and then and that's really fun because she loves the water.
Yeah.
And then a little while later, she's persuaded by her father, by Don, to get a job in some cheesy Niagara Falls setting.
I'll read that then.
Okay.
Now. Okay, so you've all been to Clifton Hill, or you know about Clifton Hill, and how you got the tacky sort of hill versus the beauty of Niagara Falls. So Caitlin is on Clifton Hill at this point. I'll just read a little. Oh, okay, thanks. Oh, thank you. All right. After 2 hours of watching strangers walk by up and down Clifton Hill, I left my booth for my mid-morning break. I walked past Ted's booth, so he's another seller there, an older man and much more experienced, and pumped coins into the Coca-Cola machine. Sipping my Diet Coke, I stepped away from the machine's humming to listen to his spiel. He was talking to a young Asian couple about things that weren't in the brochure. How Superman saved Lois Lane from the whirlpool rapids treachery. How the first person to tightrope walk across the Niagara Gorge was a Frenchman who called himself the Great Blondin. The fiberglass yellow-capped daredevil? That's right, folks. Blondin even pushed a wheelbarrow to the center of the rope where he stopped, cooked an omelet on a small stove and ate it. Carried his manager on his back, once he even crossed blindfolded. His spiel then turned to the story of the old scow. Loaded with rock, the scow was being towed by a hydro tug to the upper river when the line broke. Because the bottom grounded in time, the men were saved from the brink. I'd seen the barge. It had shrubs growing out of it. Memorized the points in the brochure, a boring list of facts. Ted's helpful advice? He was telling stories. He was making them see. As my workday neared its end, I hadn't sold one ticket. The closest I came was an older couple who'd promised they'd be back. They wanted the night illumination tour. They loved the photos showing the rainbow effect over cascading water. Niagara Falls lit like magic. My first sale was going to happen. I was sure of it, but it was almost time to go, and they hadn't come back yet. On my way to Mom's Malibu, I saw the couple standing under the veranda. They were waiting with others for the evening tour bus to arrive. "Hello, you need a ticket," I said, my heart racing with excitement. "Wait until I share this with Dad." The woman waved a ticket and pointed to Ted, standing by his booth. "He gave us a special discount." "Fucking Ted," I muttered under my breath. Driving home that night, I stopped at the library and checked out all the books on Niagara Falls I could find. I couldn't cure my shyness, but I could learn the stories behind the facts, spill them out like a waterfall. With all the new trivia stuffed inside me, I came with an idea. I'd make a questionnaire, a did-you-know sheet, use it as a hook. Okay.
Your dad was a salesman.
Caitlin's dad.
Caitlin's dad, caught myself. Caitlin's dad was a salesman. And how much of the book is autobiographical, Kathy?
Oh, everything. No. No, it really is. It's fiction. I have to say that. Because it really was like things that, again, and my students know this. I know some of my students here, and thank you for coming. You know, you tap into the emotional truth of something. And that emotional truth is what carries you. So there's an emotional truth to the story, but there's characters, there's things that never happen. So what can I say?
Caitlin's dad was a salesman, and
That part's true.
And he was very pleased whenever Caitlin managed to, have a success at Niagara Falls. But she hated that kind of work. It wasn't her kind of thing at all. But you were going to read on originally because there's a section at the end of that where you talk about your mother and the quietness.
Yeah.
Caitlin's mother.
Oh, let's just keep it to that. Okay. Oh, shoot, I'm going to need that light again.
Yeah.
It's dark up here. Okay. So this is a thing. Some of you may have the experience too, Caitlin's experience, where you have parents that are quite opposites. So the dad's the extroverted, kind of charismatic guy, and then the mother's sort of the quiet, sort of calm person, and they work well together. And so that's Caitlin's experience here. So it's interesting as a fiction writer to sort of work with a quiet character. I believe in quiet. I believe in the power of quiet. And those of you who are quiet know, too, that you're underestimated. People think they know you, and they don't. And then when you do fight back, they're kind of shocked. And it's like, yeah! All right, so yay for quiet people. And so the mother is very much like this. And I'll just say something here about the relationship between Caitlin and her mother. Mom's silence wasn't calculating or withholding like Nana's. It never made you nervous. Being nervous meant you made mistakes, what Nana wanted. Mom's was an accepting silence. When we lived in Grimsby, while Mom sewed in the sewing room, I played with my dolls and stuffed animals on my bedroom floor. While Mom baked cookies in the turquoise kitchen, I sat at the kitchen table drawing birds with flowers. We shared our silence, immersed in our separate worlds. We didn't intrude on each other. And when the time for showing came, look, Mom, look. She was there to see. She was present. We understood the showing part wasn't where the deepest pleasure lived. That was in the doing and making.
Thank you again. You and Alex talked a little bit earlier about the process of making the book together. And I know that you've been very, very engaged in this whole process of editing something that's different from what you've been doing before. So talk a little bit more about what that was like. I mean, that first chapter, for example, I was struck by how brilliant it was. How everything that happens is in a way foreshadowed. You don't know it at the time. But it's absolutely, when you go back and look at it after you've finished the book, it's sensational. Did it just
Mary
come out
Lou.
like that?
Oh, it never comes out just like that. We wish. Sometimes it does, little parts, but like...
How much conscious craft was in that?
Well, it's hard to know, because when you're working on something, and again, where it's coming from some real life, because it is based on my parents. I won't lie about that. The book is actually based on my parents, but Caitlin is different than me, and the characters around her are different, and the scenes are different. So that part isn't actually true. But and again too, I think this book is my tribute to them. As you said, it's a document to them, and they're just such amazing characters, I think. And I'm hoping my love for them, and not always like, I mean, they're not perfect people. So that's part of the novel. So read it. And no, but I guess the thing is too. I can't even remember your question now.
I was wondering, what was the process of writing?
About the first chapter,
How
yes.
different was the
Yeah.
process of writing this from what you're usually doing when you're writing poems?
Yeah. You know, it's like you're stabbing in the dark and you're just trying things. But the thing about it is, and I talk about this with my students too, you know, you kind of work from an unconscious level. And your unconscious is so powerful, knows so much more than we think. And then you kind of come from it from the sort of cold eye. You know, Yeats talks about that, cast a cold eye on life, on death, horsemen pass by. So then you got that cold eye and think, well, what am I trying to do? And what might I do? So I think of a painter. Some of my Humber students are here, and I was talking about today about, you know, think about writing as painters too, as what kind of painting would it be? Or, you know, you need a bit more red here, a little less blue, and bring something out. So it's really, and I can't even remember anymore because it's just, you know, and then working with Alex, the manuscript was there, but then we had all these little pockets of things that just brought it to life even more, which was just amazing. And it really, as I say, it was a hard process to leave when it ended.
Well, one thing that you don't have a lot of in poetry usually is the dialogue. I mean, you know how to make pictures. You do that already, and they're there. So was it difficult to find the right words, or did they come naturally?
They actually came quite naturally. And I guess, too, I mean, I've always been a listener, and the rhythm of voices, and I had a lot of, and that's the thing you don't do in poetry so much. It's not that you can't do dialogue in poetry, but I loved working with dialogue and having the characters speak, especially Don, because he was a talker. So I could just, like, play with that and have fun.
Caitlin's life might turn out yet to be quite bad, but you feel at the end of the book that it's not going to, in spite of everything, in spite of the loss, the grief of being an orphan, of losing her home, of having an iffy therapist, and some couple of sleazy men in her life otherwise.
Mary Lou,
not all of them.
Mary Lou's giving you lots of little hints here.
There's a lot of good stuff in here. You're really going to enjoy it. But you do get the feeling that her life is going to be all right. What is it that, why do we feel that way? Why do you feel that way?
Well, I should ask you, why do you feel that way? How do we know our life's going to be all right?
Well, I don't, of course, but there's something in the way she has managed to, I think she feels she's taking control of it.
Yeah.
Instead of being acted on.
And again, it goes back to the sort of that quiet comment, the inner life, the power of the inner life, and intuition, things that sometimes get shut away, you know, it's sort of, but we all have that voice inside us. It's always there. And sometimes we just need to quiet to listen to it, or deal with our emotional sort of energy to find out what's beneath it, or who are we listening to and thinking, well, they say this and they say this, so I should do this. And Caitlin, through this, kind of learns that she has this inner knowing, and it's kind of hinted out as well, and the Quarry teaches her a lot of that as well too. So I think there's hope for all of us with that inner knowing.
Stillness is important in the Quarry. So do you want to read one more little bit before we close? There was a part where Caitlin brings one of her beaux home reluctantly to meet her father. Because she's had this experience before and it didn't go that well.
Sure. Would you mind with the light? Yeah, I'll finish with this, and thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. Okay. We got back into the truck. So, sorry, I should just say Michael, her boyfriend, they're going to see, Michael's driving Caitlin home from university, so he's going to meet the father for the first time, Don, and they're driving to the Quarry. We got back into the truck, and Michael parked under the carport in Nana's old space. Then we walked down the path to the side door. Words of introduction swam through my head. Dad, this is my boyfriend, Michael. No, not right. Dad, I'd like you to meet a special friend of mine. No, not right either. I was still debating what to say when I turned the knob of the unlocked door and we strode in. There, in the middle of the kitchen, stood my startled father in baggy blue boxers and white gym socks. Oh, goddamn, he said and put down his beer. Michael put out his hand like it was the thing to do, the only thing when confronted with one's girlfriend's father, red-faced, half-naked. Hello, Don, said Michael, shaking my father's hand. He cringed at the sound of his first name. I'm getting changed, he said, letting go of the handshake. He turned to the doorway that led to the master bedroom. I led Michael through the other doorway, into the family room. I didn't want him to see the butt of Dad's underwear. God knows there might be skid marks. We looked out the window at what we could see, given daylight was living. Can't laugh, sorry. We eyed each other and smiled, but I didn't break into laughter. We knew Dad would hear us. He'd turn the radio off. Sit, Dad said when he came back in. He was tying the string of his cotton track pants. I'll stand, said Michael, rubbing his back. Long trip. I sat. But Dad didn't sit. He wasn't about to look up at the new man in my life, a man who dared to call him Don, not Mr. Maharg. He remained standing. I hear you're an engineer. We'll be in a couple of years if all goes well. Michael wriggled his right pinky finger. I'll have an iron ring. You know how to work with your hands? He looked at Michael's hands as if they had the answer. Yeah, I know how to work with my hands. Good, Dad said, cocking his head. You can help me trim that bugger of a hedge. Dad, I said, it's getting dark out. Michael has to drive back to Hamilton. Dad looked out the window. Plenty of light out there. I looked at Michael, who was looking at my father. their eyes like wrestling hands. "Plenty of light," said Michael, eyeing the hedge. Moments later, I shouted over the loud chirr of the electric hedge trimmer. "If this isn't dark, I don't know what is." They were taking turns, holding the ladder, climbing up the rungs, climbing back down. They were in their own battle now, the prize me, pointless. It got maddening standing there in the cold dark. So I went back inside and took the heavenly hash out of the freezer. Setting the container on top of the tea towel I'd spread over my lap, I spooned cold, numbing mounds into my mouth.
So, yeah. So, before we finish off, we have to mention there is a poetry book coming. We have to remind people again. The Celery
Forest, yeah.
The Celery Forest
Stay
in
tuned.
September.
October, probably, yeah.
Is there going to be another novel?
Stay tuned. Well, that's where we'll maybe see Caitlin's life post this. So, yeah, that could happen as well.
You have some thoughts about that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think there's a journey there that could be explored further, yeah.
And where can the book be purchased apart from here tonight?
From here, and Ben McNally has been supporting us. Thank you for that. Shopify, Amazon, I shouldn't say Amazon, and the distributor will have it various places, and so it's out there. Yeah.
Well, that's good. The more places, the better.
Yeah.
Kathy, Graham, thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thanks, Mary Lou. Thank you. Thank you.